you're starting in wrestling. I did some little research. It kind of just seems like you fell into it. I mean, you got contacted, but there's a lot of guys from Minnesota, Minneapolis, Robbinsdale area in your group that were just outstanding people and were trained by Eddie Sharkey. And what was that experience like for you?
So interesting. So here's an interesting little detail about that. Because there were, for those of your listeners that maybe don't know, there were actually, I'll say this, there were 7 of us that came out of Robbinsdale right around the same period of time. Mm-hmm. 9 of us total that came out of Robbinsdale. Now I'm gonna go back a bit in history, back to the 1950s.
Okay.
And the man who eventually owned the AWA, wrestling out of Minneapolis, Vern Gagne. Yeah. And being from Wisconsin, you probably familiar with wrestling. And the man who made Milwaukee famous, the Crusher, right?
Yes, sir.
But Vern was a graduate of Robbinsdale back in the 50s. Mm-hmm. And someone that people may not know this little bit of the story, an announcer, a very famous announcer for AWA, for WWF, even for WCW. And want to take a stab at who that famous announcer would be? And your first 2 guesses don't count.
I was going to say Mean Gene.
You got it, bro. You got it.
Yeah.
Mean Gene Okerlund was a graduate of Robbinsdale as well. Yeah. And then along came myself, Crusher Khrushchev, a.k.a. Demolition, and many other characters.
Yeah.
Tom Zink, the Z-Man, Nord the Barbarian, Nord the Berserker, Brady Boone. He wrestles under another name as well. Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig, Ravishing Rick Rude. There was a bunch of us, right? And I guess it was in the water. I don't know. Up there. It was in the water tower in Robbinsdale.
I think so.
But so a little known, what seems to me a misconstrued fact is a good many of those guys did in fact go to Eddie Sharkey's camp, who you referred to.
Yeah.
Animal and Hawk. I think Wayne Bloom and Mike Enos. I mean, there were a number of guys. I you probably know better than me who all went, but I'll tell you who did not go to Eddie Sharkey's camp, and that was Nikita Koloff.
Really? Okay.
For whatever reason, I don't know why that information's out there. I don't know if someone interviewed Eddie and he took credit for me. I don't know, or people just assume because I come out of Robbinsdale or I come out of Minneapolis that he trained me. But the interesting part of my story, Brian, is when the day I walked into Jim Crockett's office in Charlotte, North Carolina, and the phone call I had with him several months prior to walking into his office to make sure he knew I had no amateur wrestling background, none, zero. And I had 0 professional training. I had never even been in a ring.
Wow.
The day I walked into his office. So the fascinating, I think part of the story is I show up with him knowing that. He literally puts me, he introduces me to Ivan Koloff, Don Kernodle, the world tag team champions, says, your new partner, Nikita Koloff's born in the hallways of Charlotte in 1984. They literally put me on interviews for hours and then says, be in Raleigh, North Carolina tomorrow night, Dorton Arena, you're going to wrestle on television. So not only had I never been in a wrestling ring, I'd never been on television prior to that.
Wow.
There you go.